Hey guys, how's it going? This is Jay once again, and in today's video, I'm extremely excited to present to you my review of the System76 Darter Pro, one of their latest 15.6-inch laptops that they were nice enough to send me as a loaner for the review. Now, even though they did provide this laptop for the review, they are not a sponsor, so all of the opinions in this video are mine. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you guys all about this machine. I'm even going to take it apart, show you the internals, and I'll even run a different distribution on it as well, and we'll see how this pairs with a non-Ubuntu based distribution. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the review. All right, so here we are on the System76 website, and I'm going to click on the laptop section. And then we'll see the selection of devices that are available for purchase as of the time I'm recording this. And again, I'm reviewing the Darter Pro, so I'll click on that and we can see some of the features that they highlight on their website. So for example, exceptional battery life. Battery life is something I will discuss in this review. It also mentions that it's thin and lightweight, has an IPS display, and ships with 8th gen Intel Core i5 and i7 processors. And in addition to that, it features up to 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. So here it is in all its glory, the Darter Pro from System76. So the first thing I'm going to do is zoom into this machine. I'm going to show you guys the various ports. I'll show you the charger. And then we'll dive into more detail with some specs, and I'll also test some distros on this as well. So let's go ahead and take a look. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the keyboard. This is a very important aspect to me, especially considering I write books. So I'm going to zoom in here. So I apologize for my unsteady hands, but I want to show you guys the key travel as best I can. This keyboard has decent key travel. I know everyone wants a thin and light laptop, or at least that seems to be what everyone is making, but there's a fair amount of key travel here, as you can see, or hopefully you can see, as I press various keys. It is a backlit keyboard, which, you know, nowadays, big deal, every laptop has a backlit keyboard, but this one had a nice surprise that I wasn't expecting, which I'll show you in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit here so you can see the entire keyboard. And it's a very nice keyboard. It feels firm, but also soft. It's very comfortable to type on. And since I do a lot of command line writing and things like that, it's very important to me to have a comfortable keyboard, and this definitely is one as well. And then here we have the replacement for the super key, which is actually custom for System76 laptops. There's no Windows logo here. This is not a sticker. That's actually the way their keyboards are. It has a completely different symbol, which is actually more reminiscent of the GNOME overview screen itself. And I'll get into the OS it ships with in just a moment, but let's go ahead and check out this backlight. Let's set this back down. And hopefully this shows up in the video, but I'm going to go ahead and change the color. Yes, you heard me right. You can actually change the color of the backlight. So I'm going to hold down Function, and then the key to change the backlight is going to be right to the right of numlock. So I'm going to press that. And now it's actually a bluish color. So I hope this comes out in the video. There's other colors as well, such as red, green, and so on. So you can actually choose your favorite color for the backlight. And then to control the brightness of it, just hold down Function and then plus or minus right here. So I can lower the backlight or increase it accordingly depending on my needs. So I'm going to zoom into the screen a little bit here as well. This is probably not going to come out in the video, but this is a very nice screen. Probably one of the nicest screens I have ever seen in a System76 laptop. It's just gorgeous. Now, there is a little bit of light bleed, but it's very, very minor. In fact, my ThinkPad T480S has much more bleed. This actually has very little light bleed. And overall, I just think it's a very comfortable and great screen. So I'm going to go ahead and close the lid and show you the rest of the machine. So here we have the actual System76 logo. Go ahead and turn this around. And it feels a little bit raised above here. But it is a solid feel. This is aluminum right here, as you can see. It's very similar to the Galago Pro, which I already mentioned on my channel. The bottom of the machine actually has it's actually plastic on the bottom. It feels firm, but it is a plastic bottom. So we have an aluminum top, and then we have a plastic bottom. which I'm actually going to show you in just a moment. I'm going to open this up and then get you a closer look on the internals here. But overall, the build quality feels very solid. Again, it's light, but not too light. It does feel like a solid machine. Now let's take a look at the ports. So over here on the right-hand side of the machine, we have a USB-C and Thunderbolt port right here on the left side, and then a USB 3.1. We have mini display port. We have HDMI, and then we actually have an SD card slot here. We have a hardware Ethernet port, which is very important for me because I do a lot of system administration. Sometimes you just have to be wired in. It may, whether that's configuring a switch or some kind of device, or you just have unstable Wi-Fi. I'm glad to see that they're still including that. Kensington lock here on the right. Flipping it over to the other side. We have a barrel connector for power. I'll show you the power brick in just a moment. Another USB 3.1 port, a USB port, and then we have a separate microphone and headset port here, which is great because sometimes combo ports don't always work well in Linux. I prefer to have them separate, so we do have the separate ports here for microphone and for the headset. Flipping it over here, we have the vent for circulation, and then we have the hinges. I'll try to get that into the frame here. So that definitely feels solid as well. So overall, the hardware build quality of this machine is great. So another thing I want to mention is the trackpad. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back into focus here. This is a very nice feeling trackpad. I do like this quite a bit. We do have separate buttons for left and right click, which I personally prefer. I know that's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I do like that. I do prefer that. So it caters to me personally. And then another thing we have here, of course, are the indicator lights that you can see here. No surprises there. And then I mentioned the barrel connector for charging, so I'll go ahead and show you the charger. I'll go ahead and put it next to the machine. And here is the charger that you actually get with the machine. It's actually very light. It's not a massive brick like you get with some laptops. And to put it next to the machine for a size comparison, you can see that it's actually not that big. Here is the actual barrel connector itself. And what's interesting about this is that you don't actually have to use this. I mean, yeah, that's what you get with it. But you can even use a USB-C charger as well. So here with me as well, I have a charger for my ThinkPad T4 ADS. This is actually a USB-C charger. So even though it's made for the ThinkPad, it will charge this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. You can see that we only have one light on here right now. We have a blinking power light. It's on suspend currently. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. Bring this back into frame, we see the charging light is actually on. So even though it has a barrel connector for the power, it also charges by USB-C as well. So in regards to the USB-C charging, that may not be a big deal for everyone, but it is important to me because I feel like that's a downside of my Galago Pro. My Galago Pro is my favorite laptop, but it doesn't charge by USB-C, which is not really a big deal, but it means that I have to have two cables connected to it when I want to use it at my desk as a desktop. Basically, I plug in a dock into the USB-C port, and then I plug in the power cord. I have to have two cords plugged in. Now with this machine, it actually does charge by USB-C, so that effectively means I can just have one device attached. I can attach a dock and charge it and have all of my peripherals attached right then and there. So even though we have a dedicated barrel connector for power, we also have the flexibility of USB-C charging as well. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the internals. I'm going to take the bottom cover off, so I'm going to go ahead and switch the camera, and I will be right back. All right, so here it is. I'm going to go ahead and remove the screws and show you guys what's underneath the bottom cover. All right, so here we are. If you're curious what the internals of the Darter Pro laptop look like, well, here you go. I'm try to focus this for you guys here. So we see we have the memory modules right here. They are not soldered in. The hard drive we have right here, the 970 EVO is what that shipped with. And we have the battery right here, which I'll talk more about the battery life in just a moment, but you can see this ginormous battery right here. And then of course we have the ventilation for the CPU. There's the fan, and that's the vent that we can see from the bottom. We have the speakers here on either side, which I'll talk more about the audio quality in just a moment. But we can basically see the internals of the machine, and I think it looks pretty awesome. There's the, I believe, the Wi-Fi card right there. And there you go. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the HDMI cable so I can get the video feed from the laptop itself. And I'm going to show you the output of various commands that'll show you some of the hardware that this ships with. So let's go ahead and do that. So here we are on the actual laptop itself. This video feed is coming directly off the HDMI port. I have customized the operating system quite a bit. I have installed my Ansible configurations, shell utilities, you name it, because I wanted to actually test getting my work done on this machine. But other than that, this is the operating system that it shipped with. I'll show you guys some additional distributions and we'll check compatibility in just a moment. But this is Pop! OS 1810, which is what it had on the machine out of the box. So bringing up a terminal. So I'm going to show you guys some commands to check out some of the hardware inside the machine in just a moment. But since a question is going to come up, yes, I actually do have a unicorn as my bash prompt. So I guess a bigger question could be, why don't you? Anyway, let's go ahead and run a few commands here. So first of all, let's check out the RAM. This review unit actually shipped with 32 gigs of RAM, which is actually the highest you can get with this machine. And for the processor, it's shipped with a Core i7-8565U. So let's go ahead and check that out. And here's some output from that. You can see the model number of the processor right here. It starts at 1.8 gigahertz for the clock speed, but it's actually able to turbo boost all the way up to 4.6 gigahertz. So here's some more random thoughts about this machine. My overall opinion is that the build quality is really good. It's not ThinkPad quality, so if you're a ThinkPad fan, you know, it's not going to be quite at that level. It is aluminum for the most part. I mentioned the plastic cover earlier, so there is that. It's not completely aluminum, but it does feel solid. Like I mentioned before, it's a lightweight laptop, but it doesn't feel flimsy. There's not a lot of flex. It is a firm feel, but it's just not going to compare to a ThinkPad. Not that it has to, because the build quality is plenty fine for me. If it's not exactly equal to a ThinkPad and it's 90%, I'm fine with that, but I just wanted to give you guys a comparison point. It is a really good laptop in terms of build quality. And also when I took it apart, you saw the battery. So it's actually a pretty sizable battery in the lower portion of the machine here. And battery life is actually one of the main selling points of this machine. Now in my case, I was doing quite a bit of work with no adapter plugged in at all. So I basically charged it up to 100%. And then I just went about my daily usage. I made no sacrifices though. I never lowered the screen brightness at all. In fact, I disabled automatic dimming and pretty much every power saving thing I could think of, I disabled it because I just want to spare no expense. I want the screen at the maximum brightness, volume all the way up, things like that. And I got about 5-ish hours of battery life out of it. And that's with actually running a virtual machine and doing some work. And again, no sacrifices made to lower the screen brightness or anything like that. So I think that their claim of the battery life is actually accurate. So for the sound quality, I know this question is going to come up, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I am not an audio expert by any means, but I think that the sound quality from the speakers on this machine are average. It's not terrible, it's not great. To be fair, I've never, not one time, been impressed by the sound quality from internal speakers on any laptop I've ever used in my entire career. I basically think that laptop speakers are generally the worst. They just don't have bass, mostly treble, tinny sounds, things like that. You know, that's no difference here. It's not going to be a great sound, but to be fair, neither is any other laptop I've owned either. I did compare the sound quality on this machine compared to a T480S. I just played some music on YouTube. It sounds exactly the same. There's just no bass. mostly treble like I mentioned, but between the two machines it sounds virtually identical. So if you're like me, you're probably going to be using some kind of Bluetooth headphones or something like that anyway, but some people do care about the audio quality coming off the speakers. I just want to let you know it's average at best, but I didn't actually expect any more than that anyway. All right, so here I am with Manjaro. I'm running the GNOME edition. I have reviewed this recently on my channel if you're curious about that, but can you run other distributions on this machine? Well, here you go. You see Manjaro is actually running. So one of the things I was curious about when I booted this up was, would the hotkeys work? So if I check out the brightness controls, for example, obviously you're not going to see the screen brighten up or not, but you can see from the indicator that it does recognize the brightness keys to increase or lower the brightness. Now, one thing that doesn't work for me, though, is the function keys that allow you to customize the keyboard backlight. Those actually are not working, and I'm not able to increase or lower the brightness of the keyboard either, so those function keys unfortunately do not work outside of the operating system that it's shipped with. Now, that's not really a big deal because they do ship a System76 driver for other distributions. I believe it's in the AUR, the Arch User Repository, for example. So that is an option to install that driver if that matters to you, to be able to customize the brightness of the keyboard, which I'm sure that probably matters to most of you. So if you're going to run a different distribution, you should be aware that you may need to install that driver. All right, so here I am on Fedora 30. This is a beta, but I wanted to run the latest version of Fedora on this laptop as well. Fedora 30 will be out in, I think, less than a month or something like that, so definitely wanted to get that installed and check it out on this laptop. Fedora actually performs very well on this laptop, so I'm just going to go ahead and open a few applications so you can see the performance here. And you can see that basically everything that I open opens very quickly. The responsiveness of this distribution is definitely great on this machine. So Fedora runs really well. The only issue that I'm running into with Fedora is the same as with Manjaro, which is with the keys that control the backlight on the keyboard. Now again, you need the System76 driver for those keys to function, and I was unable to find a version of the System76 driver for Fedora. Actually, I did find a version of it, but it was really old, and I don't think it was actually official. And I haven't had enough time yet to determine if there's a way I could get that to work. Maybe at some point I'll look at the driver package itself and find out what keys they're modifying or what they're doing to make that work. I'm sure it's not hard to replicate. But again, without that driver, the backlight keys actually don't work. But everything else does work. I mean, all the other hotkeys work. I can adjust the brightness, for example, which of course you're not able to see in the video. And then I can, of course, use the keys to adjust the audio as well. Everything works except for only the keys that control the backlight. But other than that, this distribution does run very well on this laptop. All right, so we've reached the point in the video where I give you guys my closing thoughts and I wrap up the review. So what did I think of the System76 Darter Pro? Overall, I love this laptop. I've been actually working with it now for about a week and a half. Some of the footage in this video was recorded closer to when I first received it, and then some of it more recently as of today, where I am a week and a half into using this machine. And I've enjoyed my time with it quite a bit. I'm going to be very sad to see it go. I don't need another laptop because I already have several, so as much as I would love to send them money and keep it, I do have to send it back to them. Now that being said, I did record a number of videos already on this machine, so this isn't the last that you're going to see of the Darter Pro on my channel, because I have additional videos I've recorded that I'm still editing that'll be showing up on my channel pretty soon. But overall, I really do love this machine. It's very lightweight, especially for a 15.6-inch laptop. The battery life is great. They're averaging, in the marketing materials, they're saying something like 6 to 10 hours of battery life, and that's accurate. I spared no expense, like I mentioned earlier, and I was getting 5 hours having pretty much everything turned up, virtual machines running, going through my workload, and to get 5 hours with that is actually pretty impressive. And of course, if I made any kind of sacrifice, so much as turning the screen down could offer additional battery life, it probably would have lasted even longer. So I would say that their claim of 6 to 10 hours of battery life is accurate. The keyboard, it's great. It's just a pleasure to type on. The keys are smooth. It's got a great tactile feel. The trackpad also feels great. It's silky smooth. Your fingers just glide right over it. I'm going to miss that because, of all the System76 laptops I've used, I like the trackpad on this the most. I actually like the keyboard the most and the screen the most. I mean, the screen is beautiful. It's very vibrant and colorful, bright. It's just a great screen, very little, if any, light bleed. I would say it's the best screen of any laptop that I've ever seen from System76, and it's far superior to my ThinkPad T480S. And that's actually great because System76 has a great product here, and I really do like it, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Now, that being said, a few downsides I want to mention, and this first one probably won't matter to most, but it's not the easiest laptop to take apart, and that's not a big deal for some because maybe you're never going to take it apart because you've ordered it with all the parts in it that you want, so maybe that'll never be a factor for you. There's 18 screws to remove and 3 are underneath the keyboard, so you just got to be careful with all those screws that you don't accidentally scratch it or anything like that. But it's not the hardest laptop to take apart. I just want to make you guys aware of that. But the fact that you can replace the parts is great because some laptop manufacturers, they just don't want you to change anything. It's like there's a war on consumer repair or something like that. And System76 is not taking a part in that. They are allowing you to change the parts. They don't go out of their way to prevent you from doing any repairs. Now, another thing I've noticed is that there's a slight squeakiness with the left shift key. And I don't really know what that's all about, but it's just something that I've noticed. It's only that one key. It just has a squeaky sound to it every now and then when you press it at a certain angle. I don't know if that's a widespread issue or if it's just something with this model. I'm not the first one to use this laptop. It's changed several hands before it's gotten to me. So, who knows? I just don't know the history of the machine, but I have to mention it because it is something that I noticed. And then the only other thing that stood out to me as a potential issue is, again, the function keys that you use to control the backlight of the keyboard and also the color of the keyboard backlight. That basically is very dependent on the System76 driver, and the System76 driver is not available for all Linux distributions. It is available for anything Ubuntu based, so Ubuntu itself, Linux Mint, Pop! OS, or anything else that's built on Ubuntu. You'll have no problem getting that installed. But if you're using something else, a different distribution that doesn't have that package available, then what that means is the keyboard backlight just cannot be changed. It'll just be at its default brightness, and that's exactly where it's going to stay. You're not going to be able to change that. So there you go. That was my review of the System76 Darter Pro. What did you guys think? Go ahead and leave me some comments in the comments section below. And I'll look forward to making more hardware reviews, tutorials, and distro reviews for you guys very soon, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you want to help me out, go ahead and check out the links in the description below, and there you'll find a link to purchase my latest book, Mastering Ubuntu Server, 2nd edition. You'll also find a link to my Patreon page, as well as my Amazon store, which includes a listing of Linux-compatible hardware that I've tested personally. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.